Welcome to your meditation practice. We are going to start in a nice seated position. So you're going to have something underneath your bum most likely. And the reason is you just want to have a little bit of a lift of your buttocks up. And then you want to find a little lordosis in your lower back. So it's a little natural, normal curve in your lower back that you're actually looking for. And then for that, it might just be a bolster like so. Or if you're quite comfortable, you could also place a bolster in between the knees, like so. And then with the bolster in between the knees, this can be a little bit stronger on your ankles. I definitely would suggest altering your meditation position from time to time, realistically, just because you need to get your body to be sitting in different ways instead of having the same meditation every time, because like any imbalances is just going to be amplified over years. So definitely do change it up a little bit if you can. So today we're going to be working with the introduction to the Tao Te Ching. So the Tao Te Ching in Chinese medicine or in Taoism is kind of the central text that we use, that is like this philosophy that is brought into it. In TCM, we also have the philosophy of Confucius as well mixed in there. So it's Taoism and Confucius, but definitely we revert back to the Tao Te Ching quite a lot. And the Tao Te Ching we know is pretty much as old as the Huangdi Neijing, the main text we use in Chinese medicine, if not older, because they were both entombed in the same tomb around 300 to 400 BCE, so it's quite old. And it was written by a person called Lao Tzu. Now, Lao Tzu just means old master. Now, old master doesn't necessarily refer to a him or a her or even a group of people, so they don't actually know who or how many Lao Tzu actually was. And originally, the Tao Te Ching was called the Lao Tzu, and eventually it got called the Virtue of the Path and the Way, which is the Tao Te Ching. And I'm going to be reading like different passages from it for you guys to kind of reflect upon, but it's going to set the basis of our meditation practice this morning. And so I just want to read this to you. Lao Tzu said, "I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures." And so today we're just going to be working with the simplicity of the practice. And so when we're meditating, we have this kind of urge to move into this existential, amazing sort of experience that's potentially beyond what is actually happening right now. We sort of sit down and it's like, okay, I want something amazing to happen right now. I want something supernatural, something that's beyond my understanding of what is, and to expand into this infinite consciousness. And it kind of is in a way, but then it kind of isn't in another way. And so realistically, what we're trying to do is decondition ourselves. And so if you really look at any practices of yoga, it's moving out of your samskaras or sankharas, depending on whether or not you're using the yogic or Buddhist term. And both of those are the habitual habits of the mind. And so it's these blind reactions of the mind. So something happens as a stimulus, and then there's a reaction of the mind to suddenly be like, oh, this is how I react to that actual experience. You know, they say as babies, we're born with 2 fears: fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And then every other fear is actually just a conditioned fear or conditioned reaction, samskara, sankhara, that we learn throughout our life. And so it's more of a unlearning. And in this way, this term yoga, to unify, is probably a little bit grammatically incorrect, because we're actually trying to de-unify ourselves from the illusion. So if you put a in front of anything in Sanskrit, it sort of becomes the opposite. So we're actually trying to practice yoga, the de-unification of our illusion, or the veil of illusion. We call it the Maya. And so in this way, we're just trying to come back to the simplicity. And if you look at what the Buddhists talk about as the moment of awakening, it's the nothingness. It's the no thing. And the Taoists call it the darkness within the darkness, the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. There is no beginning and there is no end. So in this way, it's completely without description, without any kind of ability for us to define it in any single way. And that's what we're trying to do. So in the moment where our mind and our meditation practice sits into it and is like, okay, I'm going to meditate, but I'm going to meditate until I hear like angels singing to me and my body dissolves into a liquid gold and, images of yantras and all this kind of stuff. And that's the moment I know that I'm uniting with the infinite consciousness. But the reality is, it's a dissolving into the nothingness by a deunification by every single association that we actually have. And so that part of our mind that's just like, now this is enlightenment, that moment of saying this is enlightenment, you're saying that everything else is not enlightenment. So you're in your duality still. You're like, oh no, this is the experience I want, and this is not the experience I want. And so in that way, we're not in the oneness, we're not in the all. And so it can be a bit of a tricky practice initially because it can feel a little bit stoic, unemotional, sort of unavailable to sort of feeling and experience things. And I quite often see people that do start their practice, particularly in Buddhist meditation, they do go down a stoic path initially, and that's almost like I'm not going to react to anything. But it's not reacting to anything. It's just not carrying on your reactions from the past or the future, rather just being present to this moment in the fullness of the moment, into the absolute isness of this moment, but letting go of any conditioned responses from the past or any predictions for the future, and just allowing yourself just to exist in the isness, in the nowness. And so in this way, it's actually simple. The practice is simple. It's a deconditioning. It's a doing less and doing less and then doing less. And so I spent many, many years going to my teachers trying to get them to help me in my meditation practice. Like every time I would go and ask them a question, I was like, okay, I know you said just to watch, and see what's happening, but then I'm getting this like dissolving into vibration, or I'm getting this like visions that are coming through, or whatever it was that I'd come to them. And invariably they said the exact same thing every single time. They said, do nothing, just watch. Again and again. Do nothing, just watch. And eventually I just kind of gave up. It was like, 7 years of asking this, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I know what the answer is going to be. And so it's just really moving into that isness. But then that isness, again, is not stoicism. It becomes this contentment with what is. It's like almost like in your heart space, you just get that cheeky little Mona Lisa smile in your heart. It's almost like your heart knows this secret, and then it radiates out this like expansive joy, innate contentment of just whatever is manifesting in this moment, whatever is happening. So let's try and move into that. And so the way we're going to do that is just by focusing on our breath. And the reason why the breath is such a great tool to focus on is because it's always just here in this moment. That's it. Like when you inhale, it's in this moment. When you exhale, it's in this moment. You don't need to control it. Your body will do it quite naturally, in and out, in and out. And what's interesting too is the breath is kind of that key between the physiological body and the mind as well. So like when we start to notice that we're reacting adversely to something, or we're having like a sort of a shift emotionally one way or the other, then you'll notice that your breath will just maybe get a little bit shorter or a little bit tighter, or you'll start to hold your breath a little bit, or you won't be exhaling completely, or you won't be inhaling fully. And so we can see that in that as well. So watching our breath is watching our mind, and the breath is always in this moment. So it's that ability for us to actually move into that witness quality, so we can actually then discern how we want to be in this moment. Do we want to react adversely, or do we want to sit in contentment with what is? So let's give it a go. So sitting up straight, rolling the shoulders back, and then closing your eyes. And then you're going to take yourself a nice big breath in, big breath in, and big breath out. A couple more breaths, just like this, big breaths. Last big breath in. You're going to draw the awareness just to the area above the upper lip, below the nostrils. A little area of skin just into there. And if you do have facial hair like myself, it's a little bit trickier. You still will be able to feel it. It just may take a little bit more to train it. And if that's the case for you, if you're just starting out and you do have the facial hair, just start on your nostrils instead, just the rim of your nostrils. And maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3 slightly harder breaths just to really feel that sensation, to really get present to it. And then you may start to notice that your mind will want to try and control the breath, but allow the breath just to be free and natural. No need for your input whatsoever. Your mind has probably already started to wander, to start to create those forms, those descriptions, to move into a duality. There is me, then there's this idea. There's me, and then there's this person. There's me, and then there's this object. But you want to move into the darkness within the darkness, the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. There is no beginning, there is no end. Move into the nothingness. Just watch the nowness. has the mind gone? Come back to the simplicity of the practice. No need to layer anything up top of this moment. This moment is perfect. Exist in the isness. Watch the breath. If the mind has wandered, maybe one or two or three slightly harder breaths, just help to refocus you. To bring your awareness into that area of the skin just above the upper lip, below the nostrils. Lao Tzu said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And there is no beginning and there is no end to this path. We just take a step, that's all we do. Come back to the breath. Again, if that mind is wandering off, moving into the descriptions, living in that duality, that feeling of being separate, describing, comparing, differentiating. Maybe 3 slightly harder breaths just to get present to what's happening right now. Lao Tzu said, "Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they need." And then take a big breath in. And big breath out. Inhale to chant the mantra Om. 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 Namaste, yogis.
Oh.